Hello and welcome to another episode of DraftGym TV. As always, you are joined by me, Andy, FPL Teach Mode, and this week we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Now, yes, we are going to be looking at our Euro content soon, so be prepared, that is coming and it is going to be epic, so don't worry. But tonight we're going to be looking at something all about FPL players starting to play FanTeam. Now, a lot of people that play Fantasy Premier League are starting to come over to FanTeam because they're seeing a lot of other people doing it. And to be honest, for good reason as well, because we are going to be using our Fantasy Premier League knowledge to help us win some money on FanTeam, which is great. Now at DraftGym, there's a guy, Alexi, he writes plenty of stuff in DraftGym, and one of those is 5 mistakes even smart FPL players make on FanTeam, which I think is something that it's really easily done. People make a lot of mistakes early on, and if there's somebody there to help you and guide you through at the beginning, it can really save you a lot of time. I was lucky enough that I had the DraftGym guys to talk to and show my drafts, and they were really helping me to talk about certain things that they know happens all the time that casual people do. And I want to make sure that the people watching this stream know exactly what it is they have to do to try and win themselves some money if they can. Now, before we start, please subscribe the stream. We're only just starting, so I'd be really appreciative if people start liking and subscribing, because it just helps us to grow and helps us to get to more people and to help more people as well. So, as I said, this week we're looking at 5 mistakes even smart FPL players make on FanTeam. And the number one mistake is that they try and use FPL scoring to play this game. Now, the majority of it is the same. So, for an assist, you get 3 points. For a goal, you get 4. For a clean sheet, you get 4. Things like that. But at the same time, there's also, and this is a big one, there's something called impact points. Now, impact points is if a player plays for a team that wins a game, they get a point. Simple as that. Now, if you've got 2 or 3 players from a team that wins a game, they will each get you a point, and you get 3 points. 3 points is an assist, which is mad. You can have a player that you are looking all weekend to try and get an assist, while you've got 3 players there that just managed to win a game, didn't get you anything else, but they won the game, and they get you that assist point as well. They're getting you 3 points. So impact points are incredibly important, and a lot of people don't realise they're part of this game when they start playing. But it is true. It is there, and it is an incredibly important part of this game. Also, when people are doing it as well, they think about their captains, but they don't think about their vice captains. There are vice captains in this game as well, so make sure you use those as much as possible. They get you 1.5 times the amount of points, which doesn't sound like a lot compared to what we're used to, but 1.5 times the amount of points, if you can bang your captain and your vice captain bangs as well, you're going to be up there by the end. It doesn't matter what the rest of your team does. A couple of weeks ago, I had Kane against Crystal Palace. He was my captain. He got me 2 goals, 2 assists. I also had somebody else, can't remember who it was now. He was my vice captain, got me 20 points, my vice captain. More than happy. All of a sudden, I've got almost 60 points from my captain and vice captain, and I think to place you needed 65 points, something like that. So straight away, I'm thinking I'm going to finish in the money here. Sounds easy, obviously. It's not easy like that every week. You're not always going to have Kane as your captain who gets you 2 goals and 2 assists, but it does happen sometimes. The other thing with impact points, if you can pick a team that has 11 players that have all won their game, because you haven't picked players from lots of different teams, and they've all won the game, that's 11 points. That's 11 extra points for your team. Imagine in FPL if you can have all of your players winning and they all get you an extra point and you end up with 11 extra points. It can be the difference between a good week and a great week. So really do focus on the fact that you want players in your team that are going to win games. And it sounds so weird because we don't think about that in FPL. We are more than happy to have players in our team that don't win games, but they perform. But in FanTeam, it is really important to make sure that you have those players in your team that win games. It's probably more important than a low-end player that's not going to win the game getting you an assist, because actually a low-end player from a team that's going to win can be very, very close in points to a player that does return. So yeah, really, really important. Now, mistake number 2 is players don't stack their teams. It is something we're going to mention every single week. every single week in the Euros, so for the Monster, every single week when the FPL season starts, when the Premier League season starts, it is so important to make sure you've got stacks in your team. Alexi, that is written this article, he always says, make sure you've got stacks. Every time we give him a draft, if we don't have stacks in it, he's going, where's your stacks? He writes for us every week about the best stacks, and we're going to have that down below here every week, are my favourite stacks of the week. When I'm talking about a stack, I am talking about making sure that you've got not one, but 2 or 3 players from a team that you think is going to do well. 2 is an okay stack, 3 is brilliant. So for instance, this week for me against Sheffield United, I've got Calvert-Lewin, I've got Dean, I've got Sigurdsson, because I'm thinking I'm going to stack up on Everton that, not guarantee, because nothing's a guarantee, but it's pretty dead on they're going to win that game. And because of that, I'm straight away thinking I could get 3 points if they win that game. Also, you're going to be looking at the impact points are great, but at the same time as well, they're playing against Sheffield United, they're playing against a poor team. I want to be in those points when they do well. I recently free hitted an FPL, and when we're looking at monster competitions in FanTeam, we're basically free hitting every week. I free hitted last week in FPL, 147 points. What did I do? I had stacks galore in my team. I had triple Man United, I had triple Everton, I had double Liverpool, I had double Crystal Palace, and I'm looking at it thinking that is because they had lovely fixtures, and I only wanted to make sure that I had 4 teams that I was basically cheering on all week. It can sound a little bit boring in a way, but when you think about the odds and the chances of picking 11 different players from 11 different teams and them all doing well and they're all their teams winning, it's slim to none. It really, really is. And don't get me wrong, it does happen. It does genuinely happen, but it's very, very rare. If you look at all the teams that do well every week, they tend to be the teams that have stacked their teams well. So they have made sure they picked 2 or 3 players from teams they think are going to win. I have seen it before where people have picked 11 players from 11 teams that have all won and they get themselves 11 points, and it makes a big difference. As I said, we are going to make sure as well that we have got you your best stacks as the monsters come out, and we'll be doing that in the Euros too, because that'll be good fun. The one thing I will say as well, defensive stacks are slightly different. So for instance, when Chelsea went on their amazing run of, I think it was 8 clean sheets in 10 games this year, it would be a good idea to have double defensive players. You know, have Azpilicueta and Rudiger, maybe even Mendy as well. But what FanTeam do, and they do this very well, they do have a stacking penalty in defence. So if you have 2 defenders, your second defender will get 1 less point. If you have 3, your third player will get 2 less points. So all of a sudden, you're losing 3 points from having a triple up in defence. Yes, Chelsea were not guaranteed to get a clean sheet, but they were getting clean sheets every week. You're now looking at it thinking, is it worth having 3 when I'm getting 3 less points? If they don't keep a clean sheet, I'm not getting 6 points, I'm getting 3 points. And you're going to start looking at that thinking it's probably not worth it. The most I ever do is 2. I usually do 2 because I can never ever guarantee clean sheets. And I think unless it's a defender that is going to get you attacking returns potentially, someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold, who, yes, clean sheets are brilliant, but attacking returns are what you're really after there. I very, very rarely go for more than 2. I'd be surprised if I ever went more than 2 again, to be honest. Especially if they're a good team. You probably want one of their attackers anyway. So make sure you know about that sacking penalty, and also make sure you check on the rules. You know, make sure you do look through those rules in DraftGym and in FanTeam, and know the rules before you enter a team. Something I did before I started, I joined a group. I was talking about FanTeam every week, and I was looking at who was doing well in the standings by the end of the week. Who was winning? Who was winning all those prizes? And I was just trying to see if I could pick a pattern out of players, and it did tend to be those players that were stacking. So if you're going to try and enter a team without any stacks and just have 11 different players, I think you're going to find it tricky. Unless you're an absolute mastermind, it is tricky to do it without stacking. Mistake number 3 is that people ignore impact points, or they don't even know they exist. And we've already spoken about that a little bit tonight already. It is really important. I can't say it enough. It really can be the difference between placing and not placing. It can be the difference between finishing 10th, and it could be the difference between finishing 50th. And the money from 10th to 50th is quite substantial. We'll go on to fading in a minute, but I do just want to focus on a bit more on impact points again. The having 3 players from one team all winning the game can be the difference between a good place and a not so good place. So make sure you know about those impact points. Make sure you have players in your team you think are going to win. We're going to say it every week. You'll start realising that there are patterns in our way of playing. Stacks, impact points, fading players are all something we'll talk about every week. Now, fading players is something we don't tend to do in FPL, or not not consciously anyway. Fading players is when you say, I don't think a player is going to do very well this week, but they're going to be very highly owned and I'm going to try and ignore them. Last week, Kane blanked and there were players that completely faded him from their team. And there you go. They then picked another player that they think is going to do well. Hopefully that player's returned, and by fading that player, you've actually done really well. You haven't picked that highly owned player. You've thought they weren't going to do well. There are going to be players you have to ignore. You can't pick everybody. There's only 11 players you can pick. So you're going to have to fade some players. And it can be just as much a skill picking the players to avoid as it is picking the players that you think are going to do well. Obviously, ideally, you pick every player that returns, but you're not going to be able to because of budget restraints. So fading a player is really important. One thing that I got told, and this was by Alexi that wrote this article, is a good way of looking at it is your players' value, each million should equal a point they're going to return for you. So if you think about that for a second, that means if a player is 14 million in value, which does happen, Kane, Salah, De Bruyne have all been around 14 million this year, they need to be getting you 14 points. So that is a couple of assists. Well, no, not a couple of assists. That's quite a few assists. That's, 2 goals and an assist. If they're your captain, obviously that's brilliant, but you need to be making sure that they're getting that back. If you don't think they are, maybe that's something that you need to be looking at, thinking, I need to fade them, and I need to think that that's not the value that I'm looking for. There are other players that actually the value is really there. Jesse Lingard for weeks had brilliant value. He was 7-8 million, and you're looking at it thinking, 7-8 million for a player that's getting a goal and assist. They're winning games, so he's getting your impact points. He was even getting braces during that time. 7 million, when you think every point is a million, he's going to be getting you more than 7 points. And straight away you're thinking, yeah, I like him. I like him a lot. He is somebody that is worth the value. Souček at the beginning of the year was exactly the same. West Ham are just one of those teams where they're playing well, they're at the top, or they're near the top, but they're never going to be priced too highly because they're West Ham. And I think those are the type of players you want to be looking at. Everton this week, playing against Sheffield United, one of the worst teams this league has ever seen, but it's Everton, so they weren't priced the same. Calvert-Lewin, 10 million up front, he's my captain this week. For 10 million, I think that's ridiculous value, considering I expect him to get maybe a brace against Sheffield United. They're going to get attack and returns because Sheffield United have just completely capitulated as the year's gone on. Whereas someone like Salah, playing against West Brom, I wouldn't say they're in the best attacking form at the moment, but he's 13, 14 million. So straight away you're looking and trying to look at that value every week. Bring your team up, bring the players up as soon as they're released by FanTeam and look for that value. Who has been underpriced? Who is going to outdo their price that week? Who do you think? Obviously you're not going to get all of them right, but you're giving yourself the best opportunity to get it right. And then the last mistake that we're going to talk about today, before we go on to some things that I have learnt going from FPL to FanTeam, is always trying to pick premium players. You see it on Twitter as well. You see people at the beginning of the year, the people that haven't played much or are just very, very casual, will just stuff their team full of premium players. It's not worth doing. 1, because you mess up the rest of your team. 2, because it just never works like that. It's never all the premium players that do well. The other reason I don't like this is because if you have got all the premium players, you're not going to be different from all the other teams. How often do all the premium players bang in a week? Very, very rarely, really. If you think about it as well, if you look back, it doesn't happen that often. So because of that, if you've picked all the premium players, you don't have anybody else in your team that you think is probably going to do very well because they're very lowly priced now, and you're not going to place like you think you will. If you have got players in your team that you think are premiums that you think will do well, just one or two, and then you've got a splattering of players that are differentials that are valued well, you are way more likely to finish in the upper echelons of the prize pool than if you're just picking premiums and then just scattering full of rubbish players. Make sure that you build your team correctly. Once you've built a few, you'll get used to it, but it's trying to make sure that you have got that good balance in your squad. We're so used to in FPL picking balanced teams for season long. We're always thinking long term. In this, it's trying to pick short term, but don't change the way you know a good team is built. So make sure that you have those premium players in, but they are of good value, and they are also surrounded by players that are also exceptional value as well. Also, make sure as well that you're in a group talking about FanTeam. I've got my DraftGym boys. They're brilliant, absolutely brilliant to talk to. They will tell me straight up, not enough stacks. I don't believe he's good. We've got a guy that's recently joined us, and I'll be talking a lot about his stuff. He does charts and tells us all about all the great stuff that's happening, and he'll tell us who's most likely to concede from set pieces, what some of the best stacks are that week, and all of a sudden you're talking about a different format and you're talking about a different way of scoring. And I think it can be really, really important to surround yourself with people that are also playing FanTeam. We have got a DraftGym group on Twitter, so make sure you hit us up for that. FPL Corf is the one that's organising that, so make sure you get hold of him. And we just talk about FanTeam every week. And it's the best way to learn, it's the best way to get better, and it's the best way to win money, which is what we're ultimately trying to do. So that is my mistake number 4. What I'm going to go into now is to start talking a little bit about, and it won't last too long, so don't worry. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I have learnt moving from FPL to FanTeam. And I've played FPL for 10 plus years. I've absolutely loved moving to FanTeam. One thing I have noticed though is that there are subtle differences, and I mentioned these a little bit as I've gone on. For instance, the vice captaincy. Vice captaincy, 1.5 times value. And it is something that you do have to think about. You do have to think about your vice captain. In FPL, it's, I know my captain will play, I'll just stick it on somebody else, the vice captaincy. Whereas this one, they will get you those extra points. The vice captaincies also, if your captain doesn't play, your captaincy moves to your vice captain, but obviously then you've missed out on those 1.5 times points because your vice captain becomes your captain and you won't have another vice captain. So really do make sure that your captaincy and vice captaincy are good picks. As I said as well, the other big thing is that it's like playing your free hit every week. How do we play free hits in FPL? We stack our teams and we make sure we attack those specific fixtures in that week, and that is how you're playing in this. I've already mentioned it, and we'll mention it every week. It's all about stacking. I won't mention it anymore now, but just make sure you've got your stacks right when you're doing it. One thing that is really interesting here as well, when I first started playing FanTeam, I used to always check after every fixture, how is my team doing? How's my team doing? Oh, how am I getting on? Oh my goodness, I'm in the top 10. Oh my goodness. And then as the week goes on, or as the weekend goes on, you just see yourself drop, as it goes. And what I've learned to do now is not to get too excited, and I make sure I only check back at the end of the weekend. Yes, I'm keeping track in my head thinking, I could be having a good week here, but at the same time, I'm not checking back every minute, because you can be 5th on for a couple of £100, and then all of a sudden that last fixture happens and you can drop down to 60th, 70th, and the spread of money does get quite thin as it goes further down. So you can become quite disheartened if you look and you're on for a couple hundred and then all of a sudden you're only on for £3. So my advice would be wait, don't look until the very end. Obviously, if you're somebody where that won't bother you, that's absolutely fine, and maybe you can learn a few things if you are watching as you're going on. But what I've learned is just to wait till the very end, because it's just so soul destroying if you're looking as it goes on. I do think as well, people don't realise there is more than one way to play this kind of game. I've learned very, very recently that you can have a team set up to try and finish in the money, which means you're just going to place no matter what. You're just looking to place. You're looking to build up your money. You're quite happy to go for a team that you think is going to finish, not in the top 20, but in the top 100, 200, and you're going to get some money back. If you've got free tickets, I like to finish in the money in free tickets, because it isn't your money. You're winning free tickets, which is brilliant. I've tended to play in the money at the moment because I want to try and build up a bit of a bankroll and enter these season-long games, and I quite like that way of playing. I've gone from a free ticket at the very beginning where I won £30 and I built up to £200 from none of my own money yet because I've just been trying to finish in the money. That's all well and good, but that's not enough for some people. Some people do want to go for that boom or bust team, that team that will either finish bottom or will finish top. I like that way of playing as well, and what I try and do is try and have 2 entries every week if I can. So I'll have a boom or bust team, and then I'll also have a safe team as well. The boom or bust team will be going for players, and they will be fading a lot of players. They'll be fading players that a lot of people will be owning, and the reason for that is because they want to finish top and have all those differentials, and they know that's the only way they're going to finish top. They know that if they have triple West Brom and West Brom all of a sudden win 4-0 out of nowhere, nobody else is going to have West Brom players, and they will. And it is a way of playing that is not for the faint-hearted, and you're going to lose more often than you win, but when you win big. So it is worth looking at that play in that way, but it's not for the faint-hearted, so I will warn you. Like I said, I usually like doing 2 teams and having one or the other. One week, I did go big on Arsenal when they were playing Man City, I think it was, and Aubameyang scored a brace. I think it was Man City, I could be wrong there, but that was one of my biggest ones. I had 3 entries, 2 safe ones, one boom or bust, and it was the boom or bust one that came in. I think I finished 25th, something like that. So that was only a £1 entry one, I should say. But it's worth doing, and it's worth looking at to see how you want to play the game. I think it's important to say it can be hard to place in this game. You do need your captain, your vice captain to bang. You really do. If they don't, you're going to be struggling to place. But it can be tricky. It's not an easy game. It's not something that you're going to pick up and go, oh yeah, absolutely fine, I know what I'm doing. And it can be hard to place. I think as well, if you're only doing 1 entry every week, that can be quite tough too. People do put in 7 to 8 teams, and because of that, sometimes they lose 7 or 8 of those teams, but other times they win big, and they're winning their money back easily every week. And I think if you're only doing 1 team, it can be tricky. It can be doable. I do it some weeks, and it can be doable, but don't get disheartened if you're only doing 1 team. Play to what you want to play it as. Don't do what other people are doing. Do what you want to do. But it can be tricky to place. But just get the ropes and get used to it. Maybe do a few £1 entries to begin with, and just go from there. I will mention this in the corner. Be gamble aware. It is gambling. There's no way about it. You're putting money in and you don't know what's going to happen, so it is gambling. I would say that, yes, it is gambling, but at the same time, using our FPL knowledge gives us an upper hand. I would definitely say that. You don't just need a football knowledge, you do need an FPL knowledge. You need a fantasy football knowledge to do well in this game. So, although at times it can feel like you have an advantage, at other times I would say it is still gambling. If you feel like you're somebody that gets addicted to things very quickly, if you feel like somebody that things can snowball very quickly as well, make sure you're chatting someone. Make sure you're saying, I think this has gone too far now, because it can be incredibly important to do that. And DMs are always open. Make sure you're chatting to somebody, and just make sure you're aware of that before you start. The last thing I'm going to say is that I actually care more about FanTeam than FPL now. Never ever thought I'd say that. And the biggest reason is because with FPL, you can finish the season top 10k, absolutely brilliant. Best season you've ever had. You might get more followers on Twitter, you might get the acclaim of all your family, but do you win anything? No. You might win some cash leagues, but if you're not in cash leagues, you're not winning anything. Whereas this year, so far, I say this year, I've only been playing for a couple of months, but I've won £200 in FanTeam. Would never ever have done that in FPL. And that makes me, I've realised that about myself, that actually I do care about winning. And I think winning in FPL people don't care about as much, whereas winning in FanTeam, it's brilliant. You can buy yourself something. So I do care quite a lot. I do also like the fact that in FanTeam, every match seems to count. All of a sudden, I've got triple Everton in my team this week. I care about that Everton game now. In FPL, I don't. And I love that. I love the fact that sometimes I get to cheer on Crystal Palace. I cheered on Crystal Palace this week. Guaita got me a clean sheet. Klein got, not Klein, I can't remember his name is now. Ward got me a clean sheet as well. and I'm cheering on Crystal Palace. I wouldn't normally be doing that. I definitely wouldn't be doing that in FPL unless I was on a free hit. So it just makes things a bit more exciting again. And I think, especially in the year we've had, FPL has become a little bit of a drag at times, whereas FanTeam has put that excitement back into it for me. And I think if something can make you excited and you can also be winning money while you're doing it, I mean, why not? Why not have a go? So yeah, I've actually enjoyed FanTeam a lot more. It could be something that dwindles as I go, but I don't think it will be. And I'll always be honest with you. That is something I will always say. I'll always tell you my honest opinion. It will be my opinion. It won't be anybody else's. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it so far, and I think you guys will too. Now, that's the end of our stream. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you do like and subscribe, as I said, and make sure you do check out the DraftGym website. It is fantastic. The content that we put out every week is incredible. And I read all of it, literally read all of it, and it helps me so much to make sure I place every week. So, I hope you have a lovely weekend. Thank you so much for watching. I hope your arrows are green in FPL. I hope you win some money in FanTeam, and we will be seeing you sometime in the next few weeks to start going through our Euro content as well. So from me, from all of us at DraftGym, we wish you good luck. Oi oi.